Oh, hey guys, Dave Nerona here from Ski-Doo, and we got a real action-packed show for you tonight. But before we get started, as we all start on the show, we're going to crack one of these, but things are a little bit different tonight. My wife says I get a little crazy when I drink, so she's cut me down from a full-size beer to this little glass right here, so I'm allowed to have one of those, but the good thing is she didn't say how many times I could fill it up. And we got a real special show for you tonight. And just want to start off maybe with a little bit of news. Just to remind you that spring check for Ski-Doo is April 14th. And you've got to check in with your dealer. Put your money down for a new sled for 2021. It's going to be an exciting year. And lots of cool stuff coming, as you all know. Make sure you check out skidoo.com. Me and the engineers have been working long and hard hours to put in these walk-around videos. Most people don't know, but I wrote all the programming for that. And it's turning out pretty ludicrously awesome. And so tonight on the show, we have a very, very special guest. And that is Carl Kuster. We're going to invite him on right now. So hey, Carl, if you're out there, we got a lot to talk about. Me and Carl, we share a lot of secrets. And so I think it's imperative that we have Carl on the show tonight. And he's also been working on some really lightweight stuff that we'll be really excited to show you. And we'll see if we can get Carl Kuster on the line. Hey, Carl. Are you out there? Hey, Carl, are you out there, buddy? Oh, hey,
I'm out there, right.
Hey, there's Carl Kuster, everybody. Most
hey, I think I got some. I got some of those same rad glasses. Check those out.
Well, few people know that that's the same box I got these glasses from.
Yeah, these are legit 1950.
Hey, Carl.
Glass.
I got one word for those glasses. Those are legitimate. You keep those on, buddy. You don't take those off. You don't take those off, okay? You put those back on.
Those match my lathe, 1951 tracer lathe. It's kind of cool.
That's awesome. Hey, Carl, did you get a beer yet? Or is there a beer there that you can drink?
Let's see. Oh, what do I got here? Oh, this one will do.
Is that a White Claw?
The White Claw Outlaw.
Well, my wife likes me a little bit chubby. I guess Shelly's telling you to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, it's like one a week, maybe. Probably more like one a month.
That's
tequila,
that's
though.
your wife.
I don't mind a little shot of tequila.
That's your wife's way of telling you that you should look more like Brad Pitt.
Yeah, exactly.
Carl, how are you doing?
So what are we going to talk about? Good.
Well, we've got lots to talk about. Before we get going, I think one of the most important things we want to talk about is, as you know, in a very serious manner, we lost Rob Kincaid last Friday, and I want to know if the words that you might have for Rob.
Rob's family, yeah, man. Rob was really probably one of the most authentic people I've ever met, especially in Jackson Hole. I remember 20 years ago being there, and he was super friendly and helpful then. And I thought he was rad 20 years ago before, all the stuff that he's done up until now. So I really thought a lot of that fella. And I'm proud of what he did, and I'm proud of what he did in the industry. And I think that the cool thing about the snowmobile industry is it doesn't matter which brand. It really is a family. And I know everybody here, and there's so many people out on the internet and Facebook and Instagram that support the Kincaid family. Man, anything they need, let us know. Let us help.
Very wise words, Carl. And one of the most important things too is they have a GoFundMe set up for the Kincaid family. So whatever people can help out with that. And I know his son went on social media and said a huge thank you, and that meant so much. I think it's really important that they all know how much we're cheering and we're behind that family in this, the worst time that for sure they've ever experienced. So we can all help ease that burden. And I think those are very wise words from someone who spent a ton of time with Rob in the racing and always outside of racing, the fun parts that really is what makes this sport magical for sure.
For sure. I think you're right. And I looked at Riley's post, kind of the memory of his father, and he wrote it really well for a young kid. He did a great job on that. So, especially in such a tough time, that's a lot. That's asking a lot of them for sure.
Yeah, the apple don't fall far from the tree. That's for sure in that case. All right, we're gonna move on from that and talk a little bit about Carl Kuster. Hey, Carl, I want to know what got you into snowmobiling.
What got me into snowmobiling would have been my dad, and really I think it was a family thing back when we rode long before we raced. Man, we just grew up on old leaf spring sleds, beating around the bush. On the trails weren't groomed back then; they were dirt bike trails or motorcycle trails, and we just cruised around. And sometimes there'd be families, like 8 families, 10 families, and there'd be 30, 40 people out there. We'd have this huge bonfire, and we cooked over poplar, which is really terrible wood, but that's all they had, and it was really a family orientated thing. And that was something we all looked forward to Saturdays and Sundays when our parents weren't working, and we'd have snowball fights and cook smokies and hot dogs and deer sausage and all that fun stuff. And then it transitioned from that into mountain riding, and just went out, and my whole family did it, actually, my mom, my sister, and my dad. And it was a family sport. And it's really good to see that it's starting to come back around to that now, kind of went away from that in the late 90s, early 2000s. We built all these crazy mods, things like this thing and whatever. Maybe like some of those ones too, which more grass drag. But anyways, we built some fun mods, but they weren't that great handling actually. And they weren't for smaller stature people, kids, wives, small guys, whatever, teenagers. So it's nice to get back to the roots now. And Carver this winter had him out riding an 850 Summit, and at first I put a hose clamp on the throttle, unplugged the rave motor, so it had less power. But we cruised around. We have a 25-acre hay field, and he cruised around, and for months he handled that. And I took the hose clamp off and hooked the rave motor back up, and I tied a rope on the running board, sat on behind him, and then I wore the tether around my arm, and he was still driving, but I had the rope on the running board, so I'm hanging onto it, but I'm not hanging onto the handlebars. So the skis get light like that, and I want it like that so it feels a little bit out of control for him, and he just backs off the throttle. So he was really good at it, and we actually took him up in the Alpine, before all this Corona stuff happened, and now, man, he rips on it pretty good. He's still too light to really affect the sled, but I'm super pumped, man. It's the coolest thing for me is to see him come along.
Well, what you don't know is one of the secrets why Carver got so good is I'd go after hours, we'd go out in the field, and I'd take that hose clamp off and just let him rip whatever he wanted to do instead of you toning it down for him. He thought that really sucked.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I want to ask you, hey Carl, you got something there? You can make some noise. We do something at 7:00 that's for all the healthcare workers, and we're going to do it right now. So we need you to make some noise, and we're also, this is Rev for Support. So many great people out there, and I'm gonna.
I don't, back to the, look at this, an millennial anti-theft device. Check that out. It's called a primer. Oh, didn't prime it enough. Marshall will appreciate that. He likes smelling all the exhaust while he's training.
As you can see, we've got a couple of other 11-year-olds on the block that have found their parents' horns.
Awesome.
I'm not going to lie, I showed them exactly where the horn and the alarm button is on all their parents' cars. Well, that's something we do every night at 7 for all our healthcare workers on the front line. And we also have Rep for Rob as well. So those two go hand in hand for the special people that are out there helping everybody. And, you know, as we said before, Rob is exactly one of those people. As we listen to a little bit more noise, Carl, I want to ask you, what's the one thing you love about snowmobiling?
To pick one thing, honestly, it's pretty tough, but they're making some good noise. But the one thing is probably camaraderie, or like the relationships that snowmobiling builds. Those are the ones that last forever, you know, and that's the ones that people remember forever, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Well said. And the other question I want to ask you is, what can you credit your success to?
Too dumb to quit, and I don't know. You know, it was, I guess, work ethic probably, and I just wanted to be successful in racing, and I mean, I just like riding in the mountains too, and the racing part of it came naturally. You know, I guess I got that from my dad, and once the racing kind of stopped there, I just wanted to just really went back to the roots, and I just really enjoyed riding in the mountains, and I just wanted to show people what I felt in the mountains, because I thought that they would get a little piece of that, you know, and I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, very well said. Brian Farron just said, hey, I love that you guys make some noise for all the people on the front lines working in hospitals. And Brian, I think you're one of those guys. So yeah, thank you. There's, as you say, there's lots of people helping lots of people in the world right now. And I think that's really cool. I love that answer, Carl, because I know lots of people have been to your place and they get to sit and have dinner with you and ride with you possibly. But I think the best thing is not a lot of people really get to know you what drives you, and I'm one of those lucky people, just like all on our team, that gets to kind of work with you and see you at shows and see you in different places and see you outside of the industry. And man, the passion that you exude and that you inject, I will say, into our sport is just unbelievable. And personally, I want to thank you for that, because we need more people that keep the fun, and you know, Rob Kincaid was exactly that guy. I mean, you could ride with anybody and have fun and make jokes, and it was that at the end of the day, when we're all 90 and we're sitting in rocking chairs, we're not going to remember the you know, how many re-entries or bow ties you did down the mountain to show off to your buddies. You're really going to remember the times that you spent with your buddies laughing about something stupid. You know, it made their vitamin water come up through their nose, right? Because they were, you know, just something happened that was so funny. And I think people forget that sometimes in our sport. And you're one of those people, you know, riding with all the guys like Ribby and Dennis and all those guys, like they bring that back to snowmobiling in the best way, I think.
Yeah, you know, it's like, if you had to sum up snowmobiling, I mean, if you go out and you're a good, responsible snowmobiler, you know, yeah. But you know, honestly, if it's done properly, the sport of snowmobiling, you wouldn't know it's there, because it's such a low ground pressure sport. And now the technology's come so far that, you know, that snowmobiles are so much cleaner. But what it really boils down to, whether it's motorized or not, is that you're outside and you're with people and you're building bonds. you know, and it's exercise, and it's like exercise for your brain, you know, to go out there and see the space, you know, and man, I don't know, you can't replace that. You know, that's what makes life worth living.
Yeah,
Snowmobiling,
well said.
motorcycles.
Well said, Carl. Now I've got a little bit of a treat here before we get into some more questions. It's the quick questions with Carl.
You feel it over there?
It's the quick questions with Carl Kuster. And the last time I asked him a couple of these questions, that's kind of what happened here. He got pretty mad, and you know, not everybody can afford new glasses or a big box of them in the warehouse. Some of us have to repair glasses. But hey, Carl, here we're going to hit you with the questions: summit or free ride?
Depends on the day. What kind of snow are we talking? Hey, you know what? I like the 175. I'm a 175 lover. It's the traction that I'm after, and you know, I like lightweight projects too. The free ride is an awesome sled. Springtime for sure. Free ride's fun, you know, and if you're gonna do more jumps and stuff like that, I still jump once in a blue moon, but I'm definitely more the exploratory on the 175 summit.
Hey, I don't want to be a nitpicker here, but these are quick questions, so they got to be quick answers, okay? Manual.
You want only yes or no?
Manual or shot?
Oh, well, a shot. I mean, come on.
2.5 or 3-inch?
Oh, 3-inch.
One piece or take off your pants and jacket?
I'm a suit, or I'm a pants and jacket guy, I guess.
That's what I thought. Sunrise or sunset?
I have very rarely caught a sunset. Well, I shouldn't say very rarely, but my sunsets far outweigh my sunrises, I'll tell you that.
Winter?
Unless I'm staying out on the mountain from the night before, then that's the only sunrise I'm going to get.
Winter or summer?
Oh man, that's really tough for me. I grew up on motorcycles too, but I mean, the beauty about winter is that when it snows, it's reset. So
I love it. If
how can you do that?
ATV or side by side?
What was that?
ATV or side by side?
Oh, side by side.
If Shelley described you as an engine, what would she say? Careful.
V8?
Be careful.
V8.
Hey, Carl, wake up. Just answer the question.
I said V8.
All right, Carl, what's your favorite? We've finished the quick questions. Now we can get into some more fun. But what's your favorite sled of all time? Because you've been riding Ski-Doo for 20 years.
Yeah. You know, there's two in the fleet. I'll walk over here and let's talk about them. One is really this thing. We did a burnout with this thing the other day. It's pretty hilarious when you look in here, actually, and you see how much room you can actually open the barn door. Check that out. Like, you could put a whole barbecue in that thing.
I remember when I was designing that with the engineers. I kind of wanted to make a lot of room in there. There's a lot of things I wanted to put in there that I didn't quite make it to the end result, but that's why it's pretty big in there.
It really is such a cool sled, you know, and it handles like, so Carver's been riding this thing, and but obviously with a 121, it's not even a 129. It just doesn't have enough track or footprint, and we still have, like, there's still soft snow up there now apparently. So, but even, you know, so it's not off trail, but it's fun on the trail. But this is really the funnest sled. Honestly, for the do it everything sled, 175. I'm trying to look at the camera here, but this 75 and the turbo, I mean, what more can you really say?
Yeah.
That's pretty much says it all.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit here, because when we knew the 174 was coming out in the XM, you were the one who really pushed me to go to longer sleds. And I didn't want to initially, for sure. I think like everybody, they're very, you know, they're sort of like what they like, and it's hard for people to try if they don't get on demos, and then they see what other people are on, and they kind of, it holds them back a little bit if they don't, you know, and they just might not get the opportunity. And it was the same for me. I remember you telling me, like, Nerona, you got to get on a 163. And once that 1 year, I said, okay, I'll order one. And I had a 54. I thought, oh, I'm going to ride the 63 once, and then I'll ride my 54 every weekend. And I remember at Grizzly Lodge riding that 163 it was just pounded snow all weekend. And at the end of the weekend, I didn't even start my 154 until March. And when the 174 was coming out, I ordered it, and I was like, you're nothing but right. It's for the stuff that you want to do and where you want to go. And man, does it put a giggle on your face. And what would you say to the guys that say, oh, it's boring, you can't, you know, it's not as fun because it just does everything so well that it's kind of boring now. I want to go back to a 65. It's more playful. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, it's just like a 175 is not for everyone, just like 154 is not for everyone. So if you're going to go out and do, like, you know, there's definitely like free ride movement, you know, or whatever, these guys doing all these rad maneuvers on the sled, you know, you can do it on a 175. Look at Alfred, and like he's doing some big whips, you know, like upside down stuff on a 174. You know, I'm sure you can do it on these things too. But, you know, so there's a challenge. If you want to do like the flip it around and bow ties and do that stuff, you can do it on a 175. It's a long machine. But if you want, so, you know, that's where the shorter 54, 65 works good. And they work really well for that really playful stuff. But if you want to actually explore and do some really steep side hills, you know, and climb stuff, and the beauty about the long sled is if you are on a flat ground and then it gets steep immediately and you have no run-in, so very, very low vehicle speed, and a steep transition right away, that's where the long sled makes a big difference. Like 75, you don't need a big run. It just hits the slope and just goes up, where 54 or 65 will tend to wheelie on that. You need ground speed to help you get up the hill. And that's where 75, man, it can be steep, like ridiculously steep, and it'll just stick to the wall. So as far as like scouting out rough, rugged, nasty, gnarly little terrain, you know, in deep snow, it's the only thing. That's what I think.
And what would you say your favorite thing is about the turbo?
You know, it's the power saves you a lot of times, like when you're just about to get stuck or whatever, like on a naturally aspirated sled, and then you pin it, you know, it whatever, it's the track speed that helps get you unstuck. You know, I don't know if it's just growing underneath you or it's just moving that much more snow that it'll just get you unstuck. So a lot of times you think, oh boy, I'm done. And then you just grab a fistful of throttle and it just gets you out of trouble.
Yeah,
but when you do get stuck, it's legendary.
Well, I would say definitely for me, the turbo, like I said this before on the last show, was it almost shouldn't even be called a turbo, because for me, an aftermarket turbo is everything I don't want in a snowmobile, and what I do. And this is everything absolutely I want. It has, you know, it runs down low. It runs like a naturally aspirated 850. It's good on gas and oil, and it runs nice, and there's no tuning. There's no clutching. It's just literally I add gas and fill up the oil, and I go ride. And that's what I want to do. I mean, I got I'm lucky I can get out lots and I got lots of time, but I don't want to spend it wrenching. I want to spend it riding, or if I'm not riding, I'm spending it with my family. And in every scenario, from sled skiing to riding big stuff and coming to your place and riding deep pow, I absolutely agree 100%. And you know, it's sometimes you just don't. You're right. I mean, the reason why there's so many sizes is because everybody wants to do something different, and that's fantastic. And But that sled, I agree. Like it's just amazing how much, and it does everything really well.
Yeah, and like when it comes to footprint too, I mean, it's just math. When at least in our snowpack, if it's deep snow, let's say kind of thigh deep, or we get lots of days above knee, and some days are rib cage, and that's where it really makes a big difference. But I'm 185 pounds. By the time I put on the guide bag and all your gear, goggles, gloves, boots, everything, beacon, all the shovel probe, all that stuff, I'm 230 pounds once I stand on the scale, like fully dressed, ready to step on the sled. That's with a radio in my pocket, like sat phone, everything. So if
A
you put
giant,
on a fair bit
you
of
got a
weight and
giant
gear,
burrito too in there somewhere, right?
oh yeah, bivy sacks, all that stuff, like carabiners, all just the normal stuff. But um, the thing is once you start, you put that on, and when I ride, so at that 230 pounds, that's my finished weight or final weight, I guess, what I'm getting on the sled. So if you start off and you're, more than that, and then you put gear on, the footprint just starts to shrink. So, with a 75, now that we got him an expert with a short tunnel, it definitely is way more playful, and the turbo helps with that as well. So you can get it to wheelie. It's not like it doesn't wheelie, it'll wheelie, so it's become even more of a versatile machine. You just have to, if you want it to creep, it's the nice thing about the factory turbo is that it's really easy to be on boost, off boost, or whatever. It's very subtle, and it's very rideable, controllable, and that's the beauty. It doesn't have absolutely crazy power, because we're running pump gas here, but it's huge difference, especially like at that 8,000 feet. It's 40 horsepower more than a naturally aspirated. So that's noticeable.
Yeah, and tomorrow you're doing a live Facebook at 6 p.m. Pacific. So if people have questions, you got to check that out. It's part two because Carl did one last week, and you had tons of questions, and you did an amazing job at taking us through the whole turbo. As Carl said, he's learned a few more things and knows a few more tricks and trades, and he's going to pass those on. So make sure you tune into Facebook Live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Now, Carl, one of the things I think that's really important, and, guys always talk about guys, but there's so many amazing women in the sport right now and more every year. And I know your wife is just a killer rider. Anybody who's gotten to go out and guide and ride with Shelly, she's just an amazing person and also a fantastic rider. And there's no secret that to her, a lot of her success is you working on sleds and making them for her. And I think that's a very that's not why she's good, but you're giving her
Yeah.
the tools that you feel that would really help her in her riding. And I think the biggest thing that we've seen when you go to women's clinics and stuff is a lot of times the women have the boyfriend or husband's old sled, and they got the really wide bars and of the stupid 8 riser handlebar from back in the day, and they're forced to kind of get on this machine and ride it, and women just do not. Women are a lot smarter, and they also need to work a lot with technique, and a lot of those things don't really work in that way. So my question is kind of two parts. First of all, what do you do to Shelly's sled, or what are some of the ideas that you talk about with her and that apply to her sled to make it specific for her? And then what would you say for all the women out there, that some of the things that they could do to really enhance their riding?
Well, as far as sled setup, usually I'll keep a sled of Shelly's, or keep a sled from the year before, and I'll work on it throughout the summer, and it looks something like these ones over here, and they basically turn them into a project, so it starts out like that. So, um, and Shelly is kind of like, she's my R&D center. I don't really tell her what I'm doing to the sled. I just try a bunch of things, and I have a bunch of different ideas, and I try them on her sled, and I'm doing it to help her, and I want to see, because she'll give me I don't even if she does give me an opinion or she doesn't give me an opinion, I can see if it's improved her riding style or improved her riding. And then when she's happy, I know that we're moving in the right direction. So I'll just keep doing more of that. So sometimes it's lightweight stuff. In the past, it's been some power, you know, some performance mods, some suspension stuff, ergonomic stuff. So I've tried everything, you know, and so I'm usually fabbing something over in the machine shop, and it goes on her sled first, and I, because the faster I can get her up, you know, her skill level goes up. You know, I enjoy that too, and it doesn't matter if it's her or if it's anybody else. I like to see, you know, progression, and when people become more successful, it's contagious, and they're happy and they talk about it, right?
Yeah. So what are your top three that
And
you would tell all the women out there, like top three that you would sort of an idea that you can sort of put in their heads or they can put in their basket to sort of improve their riding? How can they do that?
yeah, it depends. You know, it depends on you know, if they're taller or if they're, you know, like most of the snowmobiles I'd say are built probably for like a 5. I'm guessing. I don't know this for certain, but they're kind of like that 5'10", 5'11", 170-pound guy, like is the average, let's say. Where is I think more, you know, there's definitely some taller girls out there that are that tall, but if, you know, more in that 5 feet, you know, 100 to 140-pound range or something like that. That's a dangerous slope. I know that. So we won't talk about weight anymore. But you know what the difference is what the lower height is that you have to step over the seat. And do you have an expert seat on your sled, Dave? I'm looking right now.
I
Is
don't
it the
actually.
low seat on there?
This is getting ready to go to a new owner, so it actually has the stock seat back on, and my Carl Kuster seat is in my truck, so I can actually see over my steering wheel.
But anyways, you know, like
Carol,
that's
let's
the
not
biggest
get into
thing.
the mods that I do. This is more of all the rad women riders out there, what they can do.
Okay, fair enough. You know, really is ergonomically how the sled's set up. You know, we've talked lots about the riser being in line with the bars. Just on anything with a laid back post, regardless of brand, if it's got a laid back post, put the riser in line with the bar, because then you get the least amount of feedback through the ski tips, and it gives you the most leverage on the skis. So, and when we go through, we do a couple or a few ladies riding camps and stuff, and we go through and try and help them, regardless of brand, and set up their sleds for them, and they all, I think, become more successful for it, or they all seem very happy when we're finished. So, ergonomically, and maybe that's a video we could do later. You know, the setup is very neutral. You know, like where we set the throttle. So they're fairly just slightly down. We space them out so there's about, depending on hand size, you want your outside of your hand to fit on this part of the grip, so that when your hand is on there, your hand is flat, because then that promotes. Can you see that okay? Because then that promotes your elbow being slightly up. If your hand comes around the side and it comes down, it starts to drop your elbow. I know that's a terrible angle, but you want your elbow up a little bit. So really the key here is like the handlebars should be about 2 to 3 degrees of incline on there. And then, you know, your throttle, I usually put it here so I can go like this. Sorry for the bad angle. But so I can transition from here. And if I have to, I can go underhanded grip like this if I'm working off the right side. And now I'm using bicep only, and I can handle the whole snowmobile really by one hand. Whereas if you're up here, then you're using your forearm and you lose a lot of strength. So honestly, it's just small incremental changes that will make a big difference in riding style.
Yeah, and I'll add that you actually took me through a bunch of stuff on my sled, and we moved the controls in and aligned everything. I use a TKI smaller brake lever, which I absolutely love, and you know, people, it's funny how they'll spend all this money on a machine, and then you really have to, those little things, that your hands are smaller. Like, I'm a smaller guy, I'm 5'6", 140 pounds, so I have narrow shoulders, and man, when I moved, all of a sudden when I moved that stuff in, and it just made riding so much more effortless. And just like, I come from riding mountain bikes and stuff, and so for me, it's really natural to find all those things. But for someone who's new to sledding or doesn't do it a lot, again, it's not a natural thing, so you have to play around with. And what a lot of people don't tell you is that the body is very adaptable. And as you get better, a better athlete is more adaptable. So they can try different things. Yeah. And sometimes people get on like, oh, I can't ride it like that. And you're like, well, like being adaptable is actually a huge skill of being, a good athlete. And so trying things, of course, it's not going to feel maybe natural at first, but then you get to play with it, and then it might actually feel better. And I think we saw that a lot with the post in line, the riser in line with the post, as well as now with lower riser. And people think, yeah, if you're 6'5", you probably don't want the lowest riser. We're not saying that, but the reality is no. Most people before were riding a riser that was way too high, and the control difference from going to a lower rider, if it fits your body type and your size, makes a world of difference. And it's something that no one really looked at before.
Yeah. The easiest way to think about it is like, ergonomically, we're all built the same, doesn't matter size, age, gender, race, whatever. Humans are all built more or less the same, right? Bicep, strongest muscle on your arm, quad, strongest muscle on your leg, blah, blah, blah. Same. So when it comes to, body mechanics, if you're going to pull 500 pounds and you put it on the end of a rope, no one would bend over like this and pull the rope from the side. You would always spread your feet apart, and then you pull at your belt buckle, and that's mechanically where humans have their power, or whatever the mechanical advantages. So when you're thinking you're riding the sled, and now, they're so sensitive to running board weight. And that's really how you steer them, not so much on the handlebars anymore. And so when your legs are bent, then you have better center of gravity, and you have triangulated better on your feet, when they're like this. I don't know if you can see that, but anyways, you get it, standing on the sled. And then when you're kneeled down a little bit, or not kneeling, but have your knees bent, you're sturdy. And then when you grab the handlebars, they should be right at your belt buckle, like that height, right? Because if they're above that, you're actually losing mechanical advantage. So you don't want them crazy low, but the expert riser is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think, what are they, 126 millimeter?
Yeah,
right,
4.7 inches.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do the conversion now, but whatever. It's, you
need a pair of these glasses to make the conversion, buddy. You need a pair of these glasses to make the conversion.
For guys kind of in that 6 foot, or people in that 6 foot range, it's actually where it needs to be at that height, and once you figure it out, it actually takes less energy. That's a whole idea. The newer snowmobiles, like in the Gen 4 platform, is we really want to get to the point where it's less energy, right? Because that's going to make you ride longer. Yeah. Not everybody gets to hit the gym and hang out in the gym, for 4 months straight before they go sledding. So, the reality is it's just, we're everyday people, and so we need the best advantage we can get. And it really comes down to mechanical strength.
Yeah, I agree. And where a huge difference now is, and so we just had that question from somebody. They said, I didn't like the thinner handlebars around the grip because it's 2 mil thinner there at first, and now they can't go back. And I actually agree 100%. It's funny now when you get on a handlebar that doesn't have that, it's like, man, it doesn't feel 2 mil thinner or thicker. It feels like 5 mil. It's amazing. And what a difference from your grip strength from running that. The other thing we just had, Carl, I don't know if you remember, a couple of times ago, we had mean tweets. We just had a mean tweet. Some guy, I'm pretty sure he was talking about me, not you, but he said, how the hell does that guy work for Ski-Doo? And I will answer that, because this is what I tell everybody is how I work, how I get this job is, not many people know, but my dad actually owns the company. I've been trying to get fired for 10 years, and I've been in every different section. And I think I might have to bring out the all natural colored bodysuit like Costanza did. It may happen.
Nice. Is that, I see that Rec Stuff Stunts is on there. Man, that guy's a pest.
Yeah. So, hey, Carl, let's get into some fun stuff here. Do you have any good rental car stories?
Yeah, maybe we'll save some of those for a different time.
No, this is the exact time. You know, it's pretty challenging here answering you all these questions. One can get pretty hot, I know, but I want to hear at least, you know, if nobody's taken a rental car with Carl, then you just don't know. But we all have, and we've ended up in different positions in many different times. And Carl, maybe you can just tell what's the best and easiest car to burn out of a parking lot?
Oh, here, I got one for you. So this is actually, it probably is the first time that I thought I was going to get fired from Ski-Doo before we were even hired. And it was in the fall of 2001. We were at Heydays, and we were racing with Blair Morgan Racing. We were just signing the Ski-Doo deal. The director of marketing at that time hopped in the car. Blair's driving, and I was in the front seat, and we had the director of marketing in the back. I can't remember. Steve Cowing might have been a passenger in there as well. And Steve would have been the race director at that time. And Blair, we pull into this parking lot, and we're going out for dinner, and there was a nice 45, kind of a increase in the pavement, and then it flattened off. And then about, I'd say maybe 8 feet after it kind of flattened off, there was probably like a 4-inch high, maybe 5-inch high speed bump, you know, like a big one. So for the people coming down, they slowed down before they went down this dip like this. And when Blair pulled into the parking lot, as soon as I seen that and spotted the thing, I looked over and I knew exactly what he had in mind. And he just was driving up to it and just threw it in first gear and then stepped on it and like up, jumped, hit the uphill on the concrete or on the road, and like stepped up and perfectly landed downsided the speed bump, and it bottomed out, but not brutal. But you could tell we definitely jumped the whole thing, and those guys are in the back like that. And I thought, oh shit, we're getting fired for sure. that was the first time.
Yeah, maybe tell us about the second time, Carl.
And we just pulled up like nothing happened.
Maybe tell us about the second time, Carl. Have you, with this question, have you ever wrecked a prototype?
Yeah, I've wrecked a couple.
Maybe tell us about one of those, because you know, lots of times we get to we get to ride prototypes that there are not very many of them, and they're also very, very expensive. And I think the engineers who I work with all the time, as you can tell, they trust us. I don't know how they trust us, because they're smart in one way. They're so smart in one way, but in other ways they're just not that smart. So and you can always tell. It's sort of like your dad, how your dad looks at you when he gives you the car and says you can go for a drive, but he looks at you where you know that if you do something to the car, you probably just shouldn't come home. just keep driving it in whatever condition it is, and just you don't know where you're going to go, but you're going to go somewhere. So tell us a little bit about that prototype.
Prototype? Oh, there's been a few. The first one was a Rev, and I bent it up, and it brought it back. It was all the magazine people were there, and it was a summit, and I brought it back, and I rode it up, and it didn't look too bad from a distance, but the left ski was totally off the ground, and the right rear idler wheel was totally off the ground. So it was kind of like a Twizzler. And the handlebar wasn't attached on the right hand side, but I just held it in place, and I pulled up just like the next guy was going to hop on it, and I just let the handlebar go, just like I was dropping the mic, and took the tether off, and they kind of looked at the handlebar and they circled it, and I said, and then whatever, they started to look a little closer, and whatever, I went over a bit of a cliff on it, and yeah,
Well,
oops.
the
I
good
thought, oh, I could have crawled underneath the sled and like scurried out of there. I was so embarrassed.
the good part of
Uh,
that you probably don't know is several years later, that's where Team Ocean came from. So
yeah,
so
something
we
like
can all
that.
thank you for that. And hey, so the other question I had for you is, what is your favorite snowmobile show and why?
Ah, my favorite snowmobile show. Hmm. You know what? I don't watch TV that much, but I tell you, one of the most entertaining things was Rob and Dave. Like that, you can't watch that and not bust your guts laughing. Like I just, epic, man. Really.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the funniest, consistently the funniest thing, like out of any TV shows or anything on the internet. Like for me, anyways, hilarity.
yeah. I would agree. And also the what's great about that is, you know, it's such an unfortunate circumstance around why we're getting to see all these older shows, and the sort of behind the scenes with Dave and Rob is, you know, the worst case scenario, but the best outcome is we're getting to see it and see the magic that those two guys have. And some of us get to see it on a regular basis. Some of us are not privy to it at all. And now we're all getting to see it. And I would agree 100% is, you know, if we can be, you know, if there's two people we could all be more like, it's those two guys, that's for sure.
You know, and it's now is a tough time for a lot of people, especially people that were close to Rob. Um, but as the time passes, you know, then you'll start to you'll start to heal. And the most important thing is to remember the times that they made you laugh, right?
Yeah.
You know, and in the end, really only things that really matter is who loved you and who did you love, right? Like
Yeah.
really, when you really boil it down. So
Yeah.
um, those two guys, like, you know, made everybody laugh, and that's, you know, that's something that you remember. So that's cool.
Yeah, life's pretty damn simple. I don't know why I have to make it so complicated, but you said it, you said it best. What is your of the sledding fall shows, or it could be any show that we go to? What's your favorite one that you visit? Is it Heydays? Is it a spring show? Is it a fall show? Which one do you like the best?
Hades is cool for sure, but honestly, probably my favorite snowmobile event out of any of them is Jackson Hole. You know, it's the people, it's the Jackson Hole Snow Devils, it's all those volunteers that put it on. You know, it's the camaraderie of the racers. Doesn't matter the brands, honestly. There's no bashing in there. There's some fun ribbing and stuff, but everybody gets along. And yeah, it's serious in business when you're doing your run. But for the most part, man, it really is the most family orientated feeling of professional event that I've ever been to. You know, it can be a spectacle if the weather is really nice and the beer gardens are hopping, man, like legendary happenings.
Yeah, there's been a few people, mostly women, who've lost their tops at Jackson Hole. That's but they're definitely my favorite part about it.
Yeah, yeah, things can get a little wild, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, it's funny. I would agree. I've been to Jackson a few times to watch you guys and help out at the base. We always have a setup, and it is it's just on another level of fun, and also it's just not done anywhere in the world. You know, especially for all the guys. We had Jay
That's
Manenberry on, and you know they don't really get to showcase their stuff because most of the time it's out in some place that no one really goes out. It's just the racers, their family, and friends. But Jackson's different. I mean, Jackson is an event, and people go to it just to watch it and hang out and drink beers and then party their faces off. And again, it's really, you know, one thing about this sport, what's so amazing is that it's such an eclectic group of people that are just so passionate about motorsports and sleds and just doing cool stuff that people just have. I know in your own team, you get people that come and cook for you, and literally every 3 meals a day are just like, they're just trying to top those meals, and everybody, you know, it's everybody just gets behind it. And there's just not too many events in any sport that are like that in the world.
No, and you know, you see people helping each other that are even from different brands or whatever, and that's cool, you know, like it's to me, you know, when we raced snowcross, it was fun for sure, but it was business, you know, and we took it seriously, and we had really good friends and made good friends, and they were on other brands and stuff. But man, when the green flag went up, it was like it was on. You know, and Jackson Hole is like that too, but it just is a lot more family vibe, and it's more fun, you know, just a little less pressure, I guess, you know, because it's, I don't know, it's a special event for sure.
Yeah, cool. Hey, so a couple of more questions, Carl, before we let you go and probably head down to Habanero Lodge and have some Mexican for dinner. Have you ever, how many times have you walked out of the backcountry? And this could be summer or winter.
Um, Only once, I think. Well, maybe when I was a kid, I probably walked out with my dad on a couple occasions, but well, I was probably pretty young. I would say 5 years ago, we walked out of the bush, and Carver was 5, and I had him doubling him on the dirt bike, and he stands on my boot tips, and he's standing, and I'm standing, and there was Jason and Buddy Dell and Drew, our chef at the time, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, we started walking maybe at about 11 o'clock at night. You know, it was one of those rides because the sun finally went down. Jason had his iPhone zip tied with the flashlight on because maybe that was just after the bikes had ran out of gas or however. But the willows were so thick, it was absolutely impossible to get the bikes through. Like physically, didn't have to put the kickstands down. We just got off the bikes and they stood standing up in the willows like these nasty, nasty alder. And then we walked out with a zip tied cell phone on the chest protector. I don't know, maybe about 2 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's thirsty. We're starving, and Drew, you know, had like a 2-day-old Tim Hortons McMuffin in his backpack, and Carver's hungry. He ate all the granola bars. We're all starving to death, so we're splitting this like dried out baked turd of a Tim Hortons muffin, and it was so dry we couldn't even swallow it. And so we get to this creek and we have a drink of water out of the creek and it's pitch black. And then we just thought, well, we'll just have a quick nap here and we'll walk out, you know, when it'd be daylight in a couple hours, right? 4 or 5 hours. We laid down for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, and then we heard some rustling in the bush. We all got up and we walked the rest of the way out of there. And about 2 or 3 o'clock at night, or in the morning, sorry, one of our friends picked us up on the road. Yeah.
That's all. Those are the stories that you'll remember forever. So actually,
Bad decisions make good stories. It just takes time.
it just takes time. Yeah. Sharp Reynolds
That's our
asked that
motto.
we already answered this, but he asked, do you prefer the turbo free ride or expert? I think he answered that with the expert. And I'm going to ask you one more question, which I think is a good one. Is where do you see sledding going? Where do you think it's going to go in the future? What would you like to see?
Well, I would like to see more people that are out of industry try it, actually. Um, Really, it's getting to the point now where the snowmobiles are becoming very intuitive to ride. And I think that, you know, I've tried a lot of all the motorized sports for sure, and I really enjoy the self-propelled ones too. Like I like mountain biking, I like hiking. I go skiing with Carver, and I'm not so great in the water. I'm learning, but Shelly's taken me surfing a little bit, and I'm pretty terrible at it, but I try. And you know, the once or twice that I actually did catch a wave and not get pummeled in the surf. I think of it, it's that kind of work to get out there and surf, and then it feels so cool when you catch that wave. But to me, snowmobiling, yes, you have to figure out your body weight and maneuvering the snowmobile, but once you figure it out, man, you can just keep catching that wave, uphill, downhill, sideways, backwards, whatever. And that's what makes snowmobiling contagious, or makes it a cool thing, like contagious in a good way, I
Yeah.
should say.
Where
But
where do you where
it's
now where do you see it going? Like what do you see as the next big thing? What would you like to see?
um, I would like to see, I'd like to see them a little bit more intuitive yet. I got a couple ideas.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I will say this, if you have never been to CKMP, you got to put it on your bucket list. All the kids out there, get to your parents and bug them to go. Take your mom or your dad. There's lots of things to do around that place and all that. But get there. You will have the time of your life. And you guys just do. I got to tell you, you do like, and this is coming from just a person, not trying to hype your business. This is literally, I've been there a number of times. I've been there with so many different groups, and the smiles and the euphoria you see on people when they either new riders or it's been a dream of theirs, and they've taken their some money, and this is the trip of the lifetime, and they've come to your place, right up to people that get to come all the time, or filmers or magazines, and everybody leaves with the biggest smile. And it's just due to your whole group, from the chefs like Hugo and all the other people, to the people that are like doing the beds and the cleanup, and Carly and everybody, and all your guides. It's just top notch. It just doesn't get any better. It's BC, it's British Columbia, and that's what you're going to get, and it's real. And I want to thank you for that. And I also want to remind people that tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific, go live with Carl on Facebook and ask him the questions that you want on the turbo. Obviously, we have Spring Check coming up for April 14th. That's where you're going to get, if you want to get a new snowmobile, that's where you got to get your order into the dealer. And you can ask them about that turbo. We've all been running them, and it's a magical sled. I love it. Everybody loves it. I don't think there's anybody out there who doesn't love it. And so you can ask Carl all those questions tomorrow. And I will also let you know that coming up on Friday, we got a special guest from Snow West. Ryan Harris is going to be in the house. So I don't know how that's going to go. He's super tall. So I don't know if we can fit him in the same screen. I might have
It's going to look like this the whole time.
yeah. There's gonna be just this much in the screen. I might have to just get in the sideways or something. Maybe I'll just take this corner, and then he'll take the whole rest of the screen because he's just so tall. But we're gonna be live with him and Carl. I'm gonna see you in the summer for sure. I'll get my e-foil up there. We'll go e-foiling on the water, buddy, and do some dirt biking, some e-biking, and some other just trouble.
Some karting?
Some karting. I'm all in on the karting. I've yet to blow up one of those engines, and I'd love to try it.
I think that I think you'd scare yourself before you blew it up.
Yeah.
Man, they are haywire.
Yeah, I know I would. But I want to thank you and for taking the time, and have a good night. Say hi to everybody up at CKMP. We'll chat to you later.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
All right, you guys, and thanks for joining me here on After Dark. We had Carl Kuster again. Please join him tomorrow on Facebook Live, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Have a great night. Hug and kiss your family, and take care, and take care of one another out there. But everybody, ciao.
Brap, brap.
Brap.